Today on Community Cooking, we have Vandana Chef back in our kitchen. Today she's making an Asian-inspired plant-based meal, starting with a hot and sour soup served alongside tofu lettuce wraps. We're cooking with some of the best chefs from right here in our own community, so grab a seat and get comfortable. We have another great meal for you. This is your Community Cooking. Hi, and welcome to Community Cooking. I'm your host, Maria Prekajis, and I'm always excited to have Vandana Chef in the house, as I like to say. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Well, I love having you here because it's always super healthy, super easy, usually vegetarian, if not vegan, and that's how you live your life. And you're also a registered dietitian.
And my purpose in life, in my career, in my profession, is to help people really enjoy food, savor food, and find out what's best for them to have optimal performance in all that they want to achieve.
Well, and today we're making hot and sour soup, and then we'll get into some tofu lettuce wraps, which I can't wait for. Hot and sour soup, I eat it year-round. I know Southern California, everyone's like, well, winter kind of comes, but it's so good for you, and I love any broth-based soup. It just warms you up, whether it's hot or cold out, or where you're in your condo or your house with the family. It's a great staple.
True, and any broth-based soup is a great way to really cleanse your palate, to start comforting yourself, especially as we head into the cooler weather here in SoCal. We still don't have that cold, compared to somewhere else on the East Coast. But if you have a broth-based soup, especially if you're trying to lose some weight, it's a great way to start off your meal. So you fill up, get some broth, get some vegetables in there, and then go on to your entree.
Oh, I love soups before dinner because it fills you up. All right, let's talk first. Just tell me all the ingredients we're going to use for the hot and sour soup.
Sure. So we're going to use some broth. You can use any broth you'd like. I've chosen a miso ginger broth. That's because it adds a nice umami flavor to it. It already has some flavor profile to it. We're going to add some mushrooms, and you can use any mushrooms you like, but I went with shiitake mushrooms. They had a little bit different texture and flavor. We will have some bamboo shoots, some water chestnuts that add some crunch, some shredded carrots, colorful cabbage, and throw off some green onions in there. As far as flavors go, we're going to add some garlic, some vinegar. This is rice vinegar, black pepper, soy sauce, and I know you like it spicy. I do too.
She knows me so well.
So we're adding some chili oil.
Perfect. And then there is just a little bit of tofu. Is this for this soup as well?
That's for the topping, yes,
okay.
Exactly.
Oh,
to add a little bit more protein, a little bit more sustenance.
So hot and sour soup, is that a lot different than miso soup, like you get in restaurants, that I get in restaurants?
It is different because miso is traditionally Japanese and hot and sour is traditionally Chinese.
Okay.
And so this is sort of a blend because I'm using the miso ginger broth.
I was like,
yes.
Now, is that hard to find? Because I usually use just vegetable broth or chicken broth.
Yeah, you can use any broth you find. I find this at a local store. So it depends on the stores you have in your neighborhood. But any broth will work.
Okay. Well, let's get started. What goes where? And it's super, super simple. And while we start chopping, I'm going to ask you a little bit about, why mushrooms are so great and why different things are so good for you.
So I have this pan already heating up, and all I'm going to do is go ahead and add my broth.
I eat just vegetable broth, sometimes plain. Strange, yes, but you'll go, sometimes when I go to fancier restaurants, they'll just have a little cup of vegetable broth, and it does to cleanse the palate, and it's so good before the meal.
It is, and so I just added my broth, and then we're going to start chopping our mushrooms, and I'm going to have you chop some green onions, and we can chat as we're doing that.
So I've learned on the show, I always do it this way, you're supposed to use the ends as where you hold because you won't use them. How many years did it take me to learn that? I won't say how many. So talk about the nutrition value of mushrooms, because I love them, I just eat them raw.
I do too, and mushrooms are an excellent vegetable, actually. They're low in calories. There's no fat innate in mushrooms. And what's neat about mushrooms is they have some fiber, but they also have a lot of vitamins and minerals. And a few key vitamins and minerals that we see in them are potassium, selenium, and this is an antioxidant that's really good for us. It could potentially help with cancer risk, helping decrease that. It also has a meaty texture.
Yes.
So if you're trying to skip meat or cut back on meat, mushrooms add a nice texture to your anything that you add to them. I'm going to add my mushrooms right in.
And they're not bite-sized because they will get a little smaller in the broth.
They will. And so and you can use any mushrooms for this recipe. I'm using shiitake again just because they add more of a flavor profile. As far as mushroom benefits go, couple nutrients that they're known for besides the selenium. There's a nutrient called ergo. There's a fancy chemical name, but we can go with ergo.
Okay. Ergo.
Ergo. And that's been an antioxidant that's been looked at that's supposed to be really good for us. And so that's something that we don't often get enough of. Also, if the mushrooms are grown either exposed to UV light or in sunlight, they have vitamin D. And so when you see a mushroom packet that says vitamin D, that's because those mushrooms have been raised a certain way or exposed to the sunlight.
And I've had arguments with a couple of my friends. I love them, but they're like, mushrooms, there's no nutritional value in them. I'm like, no, my friend Vandana knows. She went to school for this stuff.
And so when we talk about the different types of mushrooms, and you mentioned the white button mushrooms.
Because I eat a lot of those.
Yeah, and those are still nutritionally good for us. They have potassium, they have selenium. But if you get the shiitake mushrooms, you're going to get more of the ergo, the other antioxidant that I mentioned.
And I love them plain.
Awesome.
Too.
Awesome.
And just taste testing as we go along.
I love it. Okay, so we have our mushrooms in.
And I like it because this soup already, there's a lot in it. It's going to taste like a big beef,
flavor.
Beef soup and have a lot of texture to it.
Yeah, and something interesting is we're going to add the bamboo shoots.
So just add it. It's so easy.
And adding some.
You have one less.
chestnuts.
I had one before we started the show.
And I'm going to add all these flavor profiles to it, the soy sauce, the vinegar.
Vinegar. Now, I know it's not very much, but that's interesting.
And we're adding some black pepper. Should I go with all of it?
Oh, sure. You know me.
Okay, then. And, of course, some garlic.
We love our garlic
We
here.
did, absolutely. So that's in. And
Perfect.
just a little bit
easy.
of the chili oil.
Now, and the cabbage and carrots, you can get it all. Of course, we love the Torrance Farmers Market, but you can get them all pre-shredded for you too and make it super easy.
Exactly. And so when you have time, of course, get the whole thing and take the time to prep it and put it together. But otherwise, you can grab shredded carrots easily at any store. You can grab different colored cabbage shredded packages in the store, and that makes life a lot simpler.
Well, and do people, I'm sure you hear all the time, I'm too busy to cook healthy. Fast food's cheaper than healthy food. What do you say to that?
You know what? I always show them ideas like this, that it really is not that complicated. And the two recipes we're making today, the interesting thing is some of the same ingredients are used in both. So you go to the store once, you get all the ingredients you need, and you have two completely different options.
Yeah. Which is great, and using a lot of the same ingredients. Some people might say, well, it's all going to taste the same, but it doesn't.
It doesn't, because again, we're adding different touches to it. So this hot and sour soup just needs to simmer for about 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
And then we're going to add the carrots, the cabbage.
So you don't simmer with the carrots and the cabbage, you add those.
I'm going to add that a little later to keep the texture.
Yes.
Because if you cook it for about 20 minutes, it's going to get mushy.
Yeah.
And I want to have different textures.
Okay. I love it. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I almost said chicken lettuce wraps, but they're tofu lettuce wraps, and you will not notice the difference. Not with Vandana here, I promise. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're watching Community Cooking.
When you use up all the groceries you buy, you save more than just food. Introducing Meal Prep Mate, the online tool that helps you plan better and save more. Just tell it what you're cooking and get tips along the way. Like how much to buy, how to make it last, how to transform scraps into snacks, and how to portion every meal. Craving something else? Add flavor to make any dish taste brand new. When you finish every bite, you save the time, money, water, labor, and fuel it takes to make food. Start prepping with Meal Prep Mate at SaveTheFood.com.
Welcome back to Community Cooking. If you're just joining us, I have my good friend, and we love having her here, Vandana Chef here, Now, we just finished off the soup. You added the carrots and the cabbage, and we're going to let that simmer.
Exactly. And the longer it simmers, the more the flavors blend in and it tastes better.
Oh, it smells so good. So now we're going to move on to tofu. I want to say tofu chicken wraps, but they're tofu lettuce wraps. Super excited. This is a staple in a lot of restaurants. Making them at home, I know, is more healthy.
And it's so easy. It really is easy. And you could use chicken or pork or your choice of protein, but having tofu on hand, it just is so fast. It makes a great meatless meal.
Well, and I was going to say, try the tofu. Try this exact recipe first because you're not going to need the meat. All right, first let's go over ingredients.
So we have some canola oil. You could use any oil you'd like. Have some garlic, some toasted sesame oil, some vinegar, soy sauce, hoisin sauce, and these are all flavors that blend together to give it that Asian authentic flavor.
Yes.
Onion, some water chestnuts, mushrooms. Again, you can use any type of mushrooms you'd like. For this recipe, I'm using cremini mushrooms. They're like portobello mushrooms, baby ones. Have some extra firm tofu.
That's the key, extra firm
Extra
tofu.
firm. And have some lettuce. You can use any lettuce that you'd like. You could use butter lettuce, iceberg, your choice. I went with romaine.
Okay.
Some green onions, and then we have some toppings.
Perfect. Well, I'm so excited because I have tried working with tofu before, and you weren't around. You weren't at my house, so and I didn't buy the extra firm, and it just fell apart, and I never know how to work with it properly. And I know you've drained this a couple times.
I did, and so the key with tofu is, especially if you want it in some kind of recipe like this, you want it to be a little drier, and so drain it a few times, and then I have some paper towels. I'm going to do that one more time and let it just sit.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to actually use that here.
Yeah, I mean, I think tofu scares people. It sounds so silly, but it scares me. So
It really is extremely bland, so the fun part is you can add any flavor profile, and it's a clean palette, clean canvas, and now you've added all these flavors, and it sings.
I love it. And is this, we forgot ginger?
Exactly. I forgot about that.
I love ginger.
I do too. So first thing, I have my pan heating up
Okay.
here. I'm going to open that up. Ooh, it's
And
pretty
it's
hot.
I mean, it is one hot pan. So then the tofu, you just let it sit, and
Just
it's
let it
already
sit.
soaking up more water.
Exactly. And then I'm going to cut my onion up. You could use any onion that you'd like. I chose this color just because it's more colorful and pretty.
And thank you for cutting onions. Onions and my eyes do not get along.
I remember.
I know.
And there are lots of techniques to reduce your eyes from watering.
So the piece of bread in the mouth, I'd just eat the piece of bread, so it wouldn't really stay. Is that an old wives' tale? I've never tried it.
I've never tried it.
I've heard that. I used to live in a ski town, so goggles.
Goggles, I can see.
Yeah.
And if you wear contacts, that's actually a protective layer.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
That's hilarious, but yeah.
And so I have this onion chopped up.
Pretty
And-
finely chopped.
Yep.
Sliced
And
up.
then if you want to do the mushrooms
Okay.
for me, just chop them up as fine as you can.
I was going to say, because these go in the lettuce wrap, so you want things
You want everything
pretty
to
finely chopped. Okay.
Exactly.
Even more so. And I use the stems. Do you like the stems?
I use all parts of the root
Okay.
and the stem.
And mushrooms, now, do you wipe them off? Do you wash them in water? There's always that debate as well.
So I actually use a damp paper towel
Okay.
and I wipe them off. And if there's a ton of dirt, then obviously I'm going to cut that part off.
Yeah, just to make it healthier. I mean, so you don't get,
So it's
Sick.
safe. Yep.
it's safer. So what is, I know you love what you do. What's one of your favorite parts of your job, helping people with their relationships with food?
One of my favorite parts of my job is to actually see that light shining in their eyes when they realize they can have their favorite foods and not have to give it up. I'm not the food police. I always tell my clients, you're going to walk away from our appointments joyous because you get to eat all these foods. And I give them ideas. They not only share it with themselves, like they enjoy it, but they enjoy it for family meals. So for instance, this recipe that I developed for today's show is something I shared with clients. And now that, families that are working, that have a hard time putting meals on the table, when it's a weekday,
Yeah.
find it to be easy.
See, and that's the biggest thing. Everyone is so busy, and, it's easier to go to a drive-through somewhere. I'll admit that, but
Often feels that way, but it's really,
it does feel that way. You're right.
if you plan a little bit, like on the weekends, if you've mapped out what you're planning to make, and you can make a double batch of this recipe and have it for a few meals, maybe a lunch and a dinner.
Well, I was going to say, I always do that. And so now you're taking the ginger that you already peeled.
Yep, and I just grated it right there. And that's going to add a nice aroma as well as health benefits. Ginger is one of those anti-inflammatory foods, so it reduces inflammation in our body.
Well, I have just discovered, well, you've always told me turmeric's good.
It is.
And that is great for inflammation. So
It is. And turmeric and ginger are actually related.
Are they really?
Yeah, they're very similar.
I
Okay.
mean, I make a very stinky but good tea with my turmeric.
Nice.
Smells up the house, but I like it.
That's
So,
awesome.
reminder, now you're going to do water chestnuts because everything needs to be bite-sized
Everything
or
needs to be
less.
bite-sized. And so while I'm doing this, actually, I'm going to start heating up my oil.
Okay. And you want hot pan and then put the oil in.
Yep. And the oil is actually, it's going to be heated up pretty fast because the pan was hot.
We had to turn our soup down a little. Now it's at a beautiful simmer.
Yep.
It
And
smells so good.
I'm getting, you hear that? That's
Oh,
perfect.
Perfect. Onions going first. And I like,
Onions.
your meals are always so colorful. So why not grab a red onion instead of a white onion?
You know, it's all about visual appeal. We do eat with our eyes. When food looks colorful and pretty, it just seems more appealing to our senses.
Well, and I would assume a lot of your clients and people that, really start discovering, it's like, oh, that's so beautiful. I mean, of course it's going to taste good.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun to walk them around the farmer's market, help them shop for these ingredients, and then show them how to put it together. So it's not just me telling them, but actually if they sample a recipe, if they come home and try it, it's more meaningful.
Well, and like you said, you take them through all the process where, you might have to take a half hour over the weekend, and meal planning is key, I think, because then you don't just come home and you're like, what am I going to make? Oh, there's, a can of this or a can of that in the cupboard. But you actually have it all planned out. A teeny bit of time goes a long way.
Just an hour or so on the weekends, and you have your entire week's menu mapped out. And as long as you have certain ingredients at home, in your pantry, in your fridge, in your freezer, it's not that difficult to pull off this meal.
We were laughing at break. She has the stock that she put in the soup in her cupboard, and I have a whole thing of vegetable broth or chicken broth in my cupboard because I use it for rice, quinoa. Everyone's like, why is your quinoa so much better than mine? I'm like, you don't use water. You put stock, some sort of stock in there, and it just adds
It
flavor.
amps up the flavor.
Oh, yeah.
And so talking about flavor, there's this term called umami. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No.
But so when we talk about flavor, we often think about tastes like sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. But actually there's this fifth taste called umami, and that was a term discovered and provided by Japanese scientists.
Okay, umami. Not edamame,
No,
but umami.
So umami.
Okay.
And what's interesting, it's a savory taste. And when you think of some food that just hits certain notes in your mouth and you just talk about that meal for a long time to come, it usually has hit that note.
How interesting.
Yeah, and so I recently had the luxury of going to a conference all about umami profile of foods. And so mushrooms are one of those foods that have a high glutamate, and that releases that umami sensation.
Oh, I love it. So you enjoy it even that much more.
Exactly.
I love all that stuff that comes out.
So now I'm adding my ginger,
Okay, so we did onions, now ginger and garlic.
garlic, load it up,
Yum.
and let's see. And while that's, again, cooking for just a few seconds, I'm going to go ahead and make my sauce, my dipping sauce.
Oh, I took your bowl.
I'll just use that one then.
Okay,
Doesn't matter.
I took her sauce bowl.
Doesn't matter.
See how I am? So hoisin sauce that you
Hoisin
can
sauce.
get almost anywhere.
Yeah, you can get it at any grocery store.
Okay.
If you notice, it's kind of thicker, so
Yes.
it adds a little texture to our
Love
sauce.
hoisin sauce.
This is some sesame oil, and I picked up toasted sesame oil, so it again increases that flavor.
Most of the chefs, I would say 99.9%, I'll say make sure it's toasted sesame oil. So you are right on track.
And then I'm adding my vinegar.
And
This
rice
is
vinegar.
Rice vinegar.
I love any sort of vinegar.
And I'm adding my soy sauce.
Not a lot. It's a very light sauce.
It is. And that's it. And
that's
if you
it.
like it spicy, we can add some chili flakes.
Hello, have you met me? I'm going to add just a little, just a few.
So now we're
There we
ready
go.
to add our water chestnuts.
The sauce smells. And this is what we're going to put on the tofu. Ooh, that
Yep.
smells good and
We're
light.
just
not
going to finish it
overpowering.
up with that.
Yeah.
And then we're adding our mushrooms.
I cut them all because I love
Perfect.
mushrooms. Mushrooms
Perfect.
really do. I make a turkey meatloaf that has onions and mushrooms and turkey meat, and that's it. And everyone's like, "What is that in there?" You know, it
That
just
texture.
adds so
Yeah.
much. A little bit of sautéed onions and mushrooms go a long way in a lot of different recipes.
So I'm going to just bump up the heat on our stove and go ahead and add our tofu.
Okay. So then the tofu, I'll help clean up.
Thank you. And so if you notice, the tofu is now, there's no liquid oozing out of it.
No.
And all you're going to do is just crumble it up into the pan.
Oh, so just crumble. You don't even have to. Oh, that's easy.
So we're not chopping it up or anything.
Because I was like, we're going to have to chop it like you did for the topping for the soup.
No. So this one
that's
we
easy.
want kind of like the ground meat texture.
Well, I was going to say, it's going to look just like ground beef, or ground turkey, or whatever you want to use. But I tell you, stick to her recipes and you will not go back.
And so we're
I know
just going
this
to
from
brown
here.
this up. Oh, it smells good.
Oh, it smells so good. So yeah, it just looks like the restaurants when they, you know, because they will grind up the chicken.
And instead of tofu, you can also buy ground fake meat that's made from either soy or seitan, which is wheat gluten. So your choice. But I find that using tofu, I can add the profile that I
Yeah.
want, the flavor profile.
So now if someone's gluten-free, because is it the hoisin that has gluten in it?
Hoisin and actually soy sauce can
Yeah,
have gluten. So you
can.
can find gluten-free versions.
Okay, you can. I was
You
going to say,
can.
would you substitute something else?
Yep,
Or
you can find a gluten-free, or usually tamari does not include.
my sister-in-law has tamari.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so,
Because so many people now are gluten-free.
yeah, and there are alternatives to most of these ingredients. And you don't have to use every ingredient on this
Yeah.
recipe. It's just an idea. It's a starting point.
But I always say, I love to cook, and no one should be afraid to cook, and you should just, grab what's in your fridge, but don't worry about following the recipe to a T, except if you're baking, of course. And I'm like, but your recipes I follow to a T, because they're so yummy,
Thank you.
and they're easy.
They are. So this is just about ready. I'm just going to give it another
Oh, it
minute
smells
or
so
two.
good.
Bump up the heat some more.
I'm going to clean up because I want to assemble and see how you assemble a couple of them.
And then to assemble, what we want to do is chop this up.
Take the ginger out. Oh, I love ginger.
And we're going to open up our leaves.
Okay, and like
And that's it.
and you can use any type of, like, a lot of people like bib lettuce because it's very round and
Yeah.
soft. A lot of people like this because it's more crunchy, the romaine.
And then
So-
you could also use iceberg lettuce. It
Yeah.
works just as well.
Iceberg has probably the least nutritional value, right?
It does, but it's pretty high in water content.
I
So you are
love-
getting some hydration.
I am, people are going to think I'm really weird, but I sometimes just like iceberg lettuce just to, instead of like a chip, and I will eat like half a head, or dip it
awesome.
maybe in a teeny bit of ranch or
That's
even
awesome.
mustard. I'm like, I love crunchy lettuce.
I do too. And so this is ready. So if
Okay.
you notice, we're just going to add our sauce
Okay, we had the sauce right in there.
right in
Gotcha.
there.
I don't know if we added it on top, but I think it's easier to add it in there.
If you
and then
add
it's
it
all
in here,
mixed in.
exactly. And we're
Oh, yeah, it looks like chicken or hamburger.
you can
Smells,
smell it.
smells wonderful. I love it. Ooh,
That's
look
on
at
the
I'm cleaning off
highest
my cutting
thing.
board to try to assemble one.
this. You're ready.
I'm going to watch you first.
Okay. And then I have different toppings here. So I have
Okay.
some shredded carrots, some cilantro, and this is a chili garlic paste.
I know that well.
And so I'm just going to chop some of the cilantro.
Okay.
So we have that.
Oh, I can smell it. It is simmering over there, but good.
So I might go ahead and add some cilantro in there
You
just to add a
can.
little bit color.
I love cilantro.
Oops.
Yum.
Okay.
And all the little bit of sauce is already
It's already absorbed.
totally absorbed. Oh, the soup smells good. Oh, you would never know this is vegetarian.
Okay, I think we're ready.
All right. Well, show me how you do one.
Okay.
How you assemble one.
I'm gonna pick a small one.
Take, okay.
And then I'm gonna just add a little bit.
And it's so healthy and so yummy.
And then add some
Toppings.
carrots,
Some carrots.
some cilantro, and then use this. Lost my spoon, but that'll work.
No, of course. Okay.
Look at how pretty that looks.
That is gorgeous.
And there's my little lettuce wrap.
Oh, it's so pretty. All right, put a little on mine. I'll make
Okay.
one. Let's see how it goes. I might do a little more of the garlic ginger or garlic chili sauce.
Yummy. Okay.
Oh, perfect. Look at that. A little carrot. I have to, do the full meal deal. Some cilantro. Okay, well, I'd like to say it's just Vandana and I, but we have a crew. So I say we finish these off, we will clean everything up, and when we come back, my favorite part, tasting. So don't go anywhere. You're watching Community Cooking.
Planning a dinner party? Figure out how much food you need with the Guestimator at savethefood.com.
Welcome back to Community Cooking. The smells are killing me. I have to taste. So the hot and sour soup.
Yep, it's all ready, and we added some toppings. We added our tofu and green onions.
And I just slurped, and it's okay. Okay. The broth. I know it would taste great with veggie broth, but the broth that you got, it just spices it up a little.
It does. The ginger and miso adds a little extra tang and spice.
And you wouldn't know that there's not meat in here, because the little bit of tofu, and this is still extra firm tofu that you chopped up.
It is. And I drained it really well.
Oh, all the flavors fused together. And with the tofu and mushrooms, it's very hearty.
It is. And you can always make it less brothy and add more vegetables to it, but I like it brothy.
So as Vonda and I was talking about, you have your broth-based soup first, and then it won't make you eat as much. Ha ha. Well, not for me. All right, now the tofu wraps. The hoisin gives me a surprise flavor that I love.
It has spices added in it.
Yeah. I'm like, what are those spices? Yeah, the hoisin, because a lot of them are just either teriyaki or soy-based.
Yeah, the hoisin has 5 spice in it, and it adds a little extra kick.
And with the crunchy carrots on top and the cilantro and, of course, the chili sauce, those are so yummy. Okay. I don't know what the crew's having, but I'm having the whole plate full. So sorry. It is so much fun when you come in. You're just a wealth of information and so positive and fun and love what you do. And I love that that transpires to everyone out there.
Thank you so much. This is one of my favorite parts.
I love it. And make this at home. I kid you not. Thanks again for coming in. On behalf of Vandana, myself, and the entire crew, thank you for watching. And remember, we really do have some of the best chefs right here in our own community. We'll see you next time on Community Cooking. I'm going back in. I'm going back in, baby.
If you'd like a copy of the recipes seen on this show, send us a self-addressed stamped envelope to the Office of Cable and Community Relations. That's 3350 Civic Center Drive, Suite 200, in Torrance, California, 90503. Be sure to note the show number displayed on the screen. And don't forget, you can find all the fresh ingredients used on today's show at the Farmers Market. Visit the one here in Torrance at Wilson Park. That's located at 2200 Crenshaw Boulevard. They're open every Tuesday and Saturday from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m., rain or shine. And if you'd like to be a guest on our show, email us at communitycooking@torranceca.gov and check us out online at youtube.com/torranceCityCable and like us on Facebook at Community Cooking TV.